Happy to take any questions for any one of us, including our partners here from the various agencies.
Specifics on the Jack's case, who, what, where, how long you've been working on it?
Yeah, sure.
Chief, if you could get everybody that was involved with the Rax
Yeah,
case.
if we could, everybody who had officers involved in the Rax case. We've got folks here from our Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force because of the human trafficking angle. Our partners from West Jordan Police Department, the United States Marshal's Office, Department of Public Safety, Park City Police. Come on up behind me, guys, because I look a whole lot better. In fact, yeah, they're behind me. Victor Rax is somebody who's been on the radar actually now for several years. There was another agency that was pursuing a couple of years ago, but this is a guy who has, through intimidation, through threats, been able to keep people from testifying against him. He has charged a number of crimes. We're going to have available for you the charging documents. You'll be able to get the probable cause statement and actually have the counts listed out for you. And we just got for you the booking photo, so we'll be able to provide that for you immediately after we're done here too. But Rax is a guy whose MO was fairly simple. He was involved in trafficking teen boys for sexual purposes. Some of these teen boys he would then turn into drug mules for him, selling drugs in their schools, high schools, junior high schools, and he had a twin threat over them. He had twist locks on both of their arms. On the one hand, he was saying, look, you know, I own you because of a number of things he had been able to do with them, and secondly, I own your families. You don't cooperate with me, then I go to federal authorities, and unfortunately there is this misapprehension in the community on the part of victims of human trafficking that if they come to the police, if they come to these men and women behind me, that they're putting themselves at risk, and so traffickers continue to get away with despicable, inhumane, evil crimes, and Rax was exploiting this. If I can say anything more powerfully about Victor Rax is that right here in the Salt Lake County Jail, finally, a man is in prison physically who has imprisoned many people metaphorically before. So Rax, of course, at this point, presumed to be innocent. Look, we wouldn't have charged the guy if we didn't believe we had a good case, and frankly, we do. It's been a lengthy investigation. Again, we couldn't have done it without these folks behind us. Flat out couldn't have done it.
Yeah, when you've been on the radar for so many years, why has it taken so long to bring him investigation?
He's been on our radar for a few months, Brian. I appreciate that question. I can't speak to the other agency. I will tell you that the last agency that took a run at this guy had a great case. Unfortunately, what they had was a victim of human trafficking who at the end of the day said, look, testify against him? No. No way, I'm not going to. And so when the situation was, we'll testify or there's no reason to keep you here in the country, the victim in that case said, I don't care where you send me, you can deport me to hell for all I care. I'm not testifying against Victor Rax. I'm not going to share investigative specifics. I'll just tell you that we built in a number of buffers here. We believe that our witnesses are more than adequately protected, and we're going to have people in court who will stand there under oath behind the witness chair and say, look, that guy did this to me.
Where do these victims come from, and how many are we talking about?
They are predominantly Latinos from the Latino community. I'm not going to identify their nations of origin. I will tell you that they are undocumented.
Are they all living in Utah? Did he grab Utah?
They are
boys?
presently living in Utah.
But were they come from? Did he bring them from other places?
I'm not going to share specifics about where they came from.
Roughly how many?
I'll tell you that we have 3 individual cases with 3 individual victims charged at this point. We do believe, we know of some other victims that we're working with, but we do believe there's others in the community that we don't know about, and we would ask for your help in getting the word out. We have a tip line, 801-281-1203. 801-281-1203. So if you believe that you or your child or your neighbor or somebody in your community, somebody in your faith-based community or in your school has been a victim of Victor Rax or any human trafficking, give us a call. We'd like to talk to you.
How old are these 3 victims?
They are defined as children under Utah state law, and that's all I'm going to say about their ages.
And were they living with them, or tell us the MO? How does he operate?
I'm not going to share specifics about his MO.
What are the human issues?
Aggravated human trafficking, possession with intent to distribute marijuana, cocaine, methamphetamine, heroin, in fairly decent quantities. We've got some sexual exploitation charges as well, and we're looking at some additional sexual charges as well, Brian.
Can victims who are afraid to come forward because of their status, what would you say to them?
If you're afraid to come forward because you believe that you will be deported, let me tell you that the United States of America is committed, the Office of the Attorney General is committed to protecting victims of human trafficking. If you are a victim of human trafficking, our first question is going to be, how can we help you? We are not going to be asking for your immigration status.
Did he use that against victims? We talked about a guy who said, I'll go anywhere, but I won't testify against him.
Yes,
Is that
he did.
how he was gaining such control?
He did use that Rax did use that in a control device against his victims. And look, the fact of the matter is, you and I walk the streets without fear. There are many people in our community that walk the streets living in fear, and when you've got someone like Victor Rax fueling that fear, firing that fear, and reinforcing with them that they are his victims, it's pretty hard for them to break out of that. And we would just say to those people, 801-281-1203.
Representative Dean,
No, not at this point.
Representative Dean, his comments mentioned that this collaboration is about putting aside petty things from the past. What were those things, petty things, that were standing in the way of this type of collaboration in the past?
You know, in the past, we've had some tension between, first of all, in our immigration dialogue. And in many states, that pettiness continues. You see in other state legislatures, politicians who are concerned about the dynamics of having undocumented aliens in the community. Sure, we're concerned about that as cops. Immigration policy isn't our issue. What's our issue? Criminal enforcement. Our legislature said, look, let's go into the immigrant community and let's target those people that are the bad actors. They're the really violent criminals. Let's take them out of the dialogue. Let's take them out of the situation, and let's move forward to that public policy. Still a lot of questions out there, some of which I'm not sure my boss would want me to term as petty, but there's a lot of pettiness still in that immigration discussion.
There seems to be a vigorous defense for the task force today. Why is that? Is the task force, in your view, is it vulnerable? Is it jeopardized by funding? Why should the
I'm going to have the Attorney General answer that question. He's the politician. I'm a cop.
Why, Mr. Attorney General, such a vigorous defense today? Is this
Well, let me say, Brian, this wasn't choreographed in any way. This was simply a chance to recognize what's been going on for a number of years. We wanted to acknowledge, again, not only the legislators who don't always get the credit that they deserve for putting something like this together. We really wanted to acknowledge, given the recent tragedies with law enforcement, the courage of those who put their lives on the line on a day-to-day basis, and then also encourage those, given this particular case, to come forward from the community, because I want to highlight and underscore that your question earlier, he's been on the radar for so long, why nothing done? Well, when you don't have people who are able to come forth and testify against him, you're not able to make a case. Now we have those people because they had the courage to come forward and take down a monster. There have been questions, Brian, about whether this strike force, the secure team, is best housed with the Attorney General's office. And I think there's currently a bill that's being considered to move the team to the Department of Public Safety. Again, they're great partners of ours, and we're having a vigorous discussion about that. This was not about that. This was about the things I mentioned before. As you see, we have Commissioner Squires here standing next to me. He and I are committed to working together because, as Representative D said, when people aren't worried about who gets the credit, then everybody wins, and that's really what we're all about. The Attorney General's office standing hand in hand, not only with and arm in arm with the Department of Public Safety, but all our other law enforcement agency partners. So that's really what this is about today.
you want to keep the force within your purview?
I think it makes the most sense, given the complexity and the types of cases that have been talked about today. We have a unique skill set. We have a very talented team in-house with the Attorney General's office. And I think everybody in the law enforcement community, the words you've heard today are representative of everybody's view that this is a very, very effective program. So thanks, Brian, for the question.
Sean, you're talking today about this collaboration coming together. You have multiple agencies. You talk about the embedded prosecutor. Can you give us a better idea of how this collaboration works to come to a conclusion?
Sure, and you know what? I'm gonna allow one of our prosecutors to answer that because I think he is Exhibit A for how this collaboration works. And it's certainly not just this team. I want to emphasize we have the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force that many of you have heard about. That is very effective using that embedded model. We have what we call Mafuku, Medicaid Fraud Unit, that has been highly lauded and very well recognized for the fine work that it does, recovering and protecting the state from fraud. Also using that embedded model. But let me bring Greg back up for a moment and talk about the dynamic for a second and why it's so effective.
Thanks, Sean. As a prosecutor with the Secure Strike Force, it's a symbiotic relationship based on a vertical prosecution model. So what happens is the investigators, they begin their investigation, they conduct their investigation, and when they seek assistance, they have immediate assistance by myself from a legal standpoint, from a prosecutorial standpoint, and I am able to give them my opinion as to how I think the prosecution can benefit from the investigation that they're conducting. So not only is that occurring, but it's occurring on a minute-by-minute basis. There's no building that separates us. We're in a hallway. I have my ethical obligations. I am a prosecutor, and they are an investigator. Their expertise is to investigate. My expertise is to prosecute and successfully prosecute. So using our shared goal of convicting criminals who commit crimes within the state of Utah, we work together, we share information. They provide me with the status of the investigation. I provide them with the legal input that they may seek at a minute's notice. And ultimately, as some of the cases I've indicated, that we've obtained successful prosecutions, that is a result of the team effort, a symbiotic effort between the investigators and the prosecutors.
Greg, can you talk about the dynamic of how the prosecutors help the investigators make sure that civil liberties are protected?
Absolutely, absolutely. When a warrant is requested, the investigator comes directly to me, and they are aware of my very high standard, and I think a very high standard that the Utah Attorney General expects. With that standard, we review the warrants, we make sure that we are recognizing the rights of every person in their Fourth Amendment, and we ensure that we meet that standard before presentment to the judge. We also ask the judge to review those warrants, but ultimately the goal is to identify crime and do it the right way. And when we have investigators who care about persons' rights, when we have a prosecutor who cares about persons' rights, but share the ultimate goal of ferreting out that criminal conduct, then everyone is protected and the criminal is found and prosecuted. And under this model, they're prosecuted successfully.
Thanks, Greg. Missy, are we good?
Any other questions? All right. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you very much.
Let's ask for this.